You can even see a statue of Moses holding the 2 stone tablets on the rooftop of the U.S. Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C.
The number 40 Hebrew, ARBA'IM. Greek, tessarackonta is a symbol of generational significance, trials, testing, and the culmination of victory or judgment. The number 40 is chosen to convey a sense of completeness. In the Hebrew Bible, the number 40 is often used to denote periods of time, either 40 days or 40 years, which separate to distinct periods. The Israelites were supposed to take only 40 days to reach the land of Canaan, but God led them to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. Numbers 33 records how the Israelites camped 41 times during those 40 years in the wilderness, compressing their long journey into a chronological account. Although the wilderness was a barren and unfit place for human habitation, they lacked nothing for 40 years due to God's provision. Besides being inspired by God to write his laws in a book, Moses introduced religious ideas, rituals, and established a high societal order for the people he led. Moses confronted mighty powers against Pharaoh and led a nation set apart by God am Segula from among the unbelieving nations. Moses laid the foundations for laws, governance, religion, social ethics, and more.
And Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated.
The number 40 is closely associated with Moses' life. No one else has experienced such a complete and fulfilled life as Moses. He spent 40 days and 40 nights on Mount Sinai, 3 times in a row. It's not a coincidence that the correlation between 40 days and 40 years refers to Moses' age and life. Moses' life can be divided into 3 periods, each lasting 40 years, for a total of 120 years. First phase, from infancy to adulthood for 40 years. He was the prince of Egypt as he was adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, and held the second position in Egypt's royal line of succession. Second phase, after the incident involving the murder of an Egyptian, Moses spent 40 years as a fugitive from Egypt, living outside Egyptian territory, in places like the land of Nod and Midian. During this phase, Moses lived a common life as a wanderer, gaining experiences different from his earlier life as a prince. Third phase, the final 40 years were spent leading the Israelites out of Egypt exodus and through the wilderness. Moses became the leader of the Israelite people and a prophet of God. Afterward, leadership transitioned to Joshua, Yeshua bin Nun for the new generation entering the promised land. The 40-year duration in the Bible also signifies the duration of one generation. When the Israelites entered Canaan, they had spent 40 years in the wilderness, ensuring that only a new generation would enter the promised land. Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua save Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite, and Joshua the son of Nun, for they have wholly followed the Lord. Because 40 years represent one generation, we often hear the expression, life begins at 40. The age of 40 is often seen as the age of maturity and adulthood, a time when a person becomes active and worthy of leadership. The character of Moses has had a significant influence on Western culture, especially among a group of European expatriate nations that first entered the American continent. These were generally Christians, primarily from the Anabaptist tradition. Why did the Anabaptists have to flee to the New World, America? It's because their presence was not only opposed by the Catholic Church, but also by Protestant churches stemming from the Reformed, Calvinist tradition. Many of them were persecuted by Zwingli, a contemporary of John Calvin. People with Anabaptist Christian backgrounds understood Moses As an extraordinary prophet of God, those who came to America had previously evolved from separatists in England, a movement that had also spread in many European countries. They saw Moses' victory, the freedom of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, as one of the cornerstones on which the United States was built. In the early 17th century, the first settlers from England who arrived in America considered themselves as the modern children of Israel. They believed that America was the New Jerusalem, or the Promised Land. They left their Egypt, England, crossed the Red Sea, the Atlantic Ocean, and arrived in the Promised Land, America. Hence, we can see place names from the Bible in the United States, such as the city named Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a city known for its chemical industry, pharmaceuticals, food processing, and printing. It is also renowned for its advancements in science and technology, making Philadelphia a major hub for the healthcare industry in the United States. In the Bible, the Church of Philadelphia is particularly interesting because it is one of the 7 churches praised by Christ. The new settlers in America from England, primarily from the Anabaptist Christian tradition, established a new form of government called federalism. The word federalism comes from the Latin word foedus, which refers to the covenant between humans and God. Many people saw this as related to God's covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. To remind people of this covenant, the early Americans used this term to refer to their form of government. This is why the Baptist Church in America flourished, and most U.S. presidents have been Christians from the Baptist tradition. To better understand the depth of Moses' influence on American politicians, one can simply listen to the speech of the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama, titled The Joshua Generation, delivered in March 2007 at the historic Brown Chapel AME Church in Selma, Alabama. Because of the content of this speech, Obama was referred to as an African-American freedom fighter, making him a member of the Joshua generation. As we know, Joshua was Moses' successor, who later became the leader of the Israelite people in the Promised Land. President Barack Obama was inaugurated in 2009 at the age of 40-something, specifically 48, and he was twice elected as president, a relatively young age for leading a great nation. Representing a generation? This is how the figure of Moses influenced governance in the United States. You can even see a statue of Moses holding the 2 stone tablets on the rooftop of the U.S. Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. The significance of the number 40 days is also noteworthy. The flood in Noah's time lasted 40 days. Moses spent 40 days on Mount Sinai. Israelite spies explored the land of Canaan for 40 days, as did Goliath, Elijah, Ezekiel, Jonah, and even the number 40 days is familiar in the life of Jesus Christ. What Jesus did during those 40 days was,
to whom also he shewed himself alive after his passion by many infallible proofs, being seen of them 40 days, and speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of God,